Welcome, let's jump right in. I'm starting by covering my Rice Krispy treat with a thin layer of fondant. If you've been here before, you know this is one of my signature moves. It gives me a nice clean surface to work on. Next, we're making our notebook paper, and I'm using an edible image sheet, a ruler, red and blue edible markers, and my cutter. Now, my cutter measured 3 inches by 2¼ inches, but of course, you can adjust that depending on the size of your treat. Now, I'm using my ruler to add those classic blue notebook lines, as you see here. Take your time. If you need to use your ruler to space them evenly, now would be the time to do that. Then I came in with my red marker so that I can make the margins. And just like that, we've got a little sheet of paper. Now for the hose, I'm using a number 5 piping tip. Just press it right through the edible image to get those nice clean circles. Now, I also added a thin piece of fondant to the back of my image. That gives it a little more structure and keeps it from being so flimsy. I'll use that same number 5 tip to make the holes in the fondant. Line everything up and then use a little bit of my edible glue to attach the 2 pieces together. And there we go. Our edible notebook paper is ready. Now let's get into the pencil. For my fondant color, I mixed color meal, clay, and caramel together to get this color. Now we're going straight into our large loops. I'm using 1/2 ounce of fondant for both loops, so I'll divide that right in half. Using my hands, as you see here, I'm rolling each piece into that teardrop shape you see here, keeping one end nice and thin and the other end a little thicker. Once I'm happy with the shape, I'm using a modeling tool to add those little details. Now, if you don't have this particular tool, don't worry. A brush handle works just as well. I'm just pressing in those lines to give the pencil a little bit more character and dimension. Nothing complicated, but it makes a big difference once everything comes together. And that's it for the first 2 large loops. Set those babies off to the side and let's keep going. Now for our smaller loops. I'm using 1/2 ounce of fondant for both, and we're basically going to repeat the same process we used for the larger ones. Roll each piece into that same teardrop shape, but pay close attention when you start adding the details. The placement on these smaller loops is a little different. So watch where I'm making those lines here. That little difference is going to matter when we put this whole bow together. Now, before we go any further, let's do a quick dry fit. This is where I put all the pieces together to make sure everything is sitting the way I want it to. Now is the time to make any little adjustments, reshape anything that needs it, and redefine any of those details before we move on. Next up are our tails. I'm using 1 ounce of fondant total, cutting that in half, and once again, rolling each piece into that same teardrop shape. This time though, we're going to flatten each piece just slightly, not too much. We still want to keep some of that dimension. Then I'm going back in with my tool and adding some pencil line details just like you see me doing here. A 2 cm oval cutter to add your final details. 1 cut for the eraser end and 2 for the pointed end. Stop and rewind if you need to. This part goes quick. Using that same oval cutter, cut a fairly thick piece of gray fondant. Trim one end straight, leaving the other end rounded. Then add your line details just like you see me doing here. Next, I'm using some pink fondant rolled pretty thick and a 1-inch rectangle cutter to make our eraser. Trim it down as needed until everything fits nice and clean. Then go back in and fix or redefine any of those details like you see me doing here. You want to add a little edible glue, attach the pieces, and there's your eraser end. Now for the pointed end. I'm using about a 1/4 ounce of tan fondant, shaping one end into a point and leaving the other end wider, just like you see here. Then I'm using a diamond shaped cutter to make that center cut so it fits right up against the other end of our tail. Make sure you add a little glue here so everything stays in place. Rewind and rewatch if needed. This goes pretty fast. Now it's time to put this bow on our crispy, but don't glue anything just yet. I'm using a small amount of fondant for my center knot, then bringing in my loops and tails and putting everything together at once. Now this is where you want to take your time. Move those pieces around, change the angle, open up your loops, whatever you need to do to get the right look. I'm also adding a little detail to the center knot while I'm here. And remember, nothing is glued yet, so this is the time to fix it. Look at your bow from different angles, make your adjustments, and once you love how everything is sitting, then we're ready to glue it all down. Next, grab your black edible marker and color in the very tip to create your pencil lead. Just a little bit here, and look at that. Now our pencil is really coming together. Next, I mix silver luster dust with Everclear for the metal, but you can use whatever edible silver mixture you prefer. Now for my favorite part, the highlighting. I'm using Petal Crafts Petal Dust, which you can find in my Amazon storefront, along with a small bristle brush. I like to use a dust about 2 to 3 shades darker than my fondant, and I'm applying it to all of those little creases and details we added earlier. This is what really starts to bring everything to life and gives those details some dimension. Start off light, you can always add more, but it's a whole lot harder to take it away. And you can see here, I keep a paper towel close by so I can tap off that extra dust before I go on to my piece. That helps me control how much color I'm putting on. Just keep building it up little by little until you get the depth you want. And this is exactly why I love this part. Look at the difference. Those little highlights make a big difference. Lastly, a little glitter razzle, because why not? And we're done. And there she is. Thank you so much for hanging out and creating with me. I'll see you in the next one. Now let's put a bow on these things and wrap it all up. Ciao, ciao for now. Peace.